Faith is the head chemist of the mind. When faith is blended with thought, the subconscious mind instantly picks up the vibration, translates it into its spiritual equivalent, and transmits it to infinite intelligence, as in the case of prayer. That is perhaps the most fundamental principle I encountered in all my years of research, the very bedrock of every great achievement I ever witnessed. People often assume that success begins with a complex business plan or a great sum of capital. But no, the true beginning is somewhere else entirely. It's in an unseen space, within the mind.
Within the mind.
Precisely. It all starts with a belief, an unwavering belief in an outcome that does not yet exist in physical reality. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? That if you can just believe, truly believe that you can achieve something, your mind, this magnificent tool, will automatically find the pathways to get you there. It's like setting an internal compass to a destination. Even if you don't know the exact route, the compass will always show you the way. That is the simple initial promise of the principle of faith.
Mr. Hill, it's an incredibly powerful idea, and I can absolutely see how it could be the engine that drives a person to start a difficult journey. I truly can.
I'm glad you feel that, Dr. Sinclair, because that power is available to everyone.
It is, and that is precisely where my question begins to form. Allow me to dissect this from the perspective of a 21st century psychologist.
By all means, I am listening.
We live in a world that runs on evidence, on data, on risk assessment. We teach our children to be realistic, to weigh the probabilities before they take a step. So the fundamental question for me becomes, where do we draw the line between this constructive faith you speak of and dangerous self-delusion? What I mean is, by relying solely on faith for a goal when there is absolutely no tangible proof of its possibility, aren't we just blinding ourselves to genuine risks? Isn't it a form of escapism, a kind of wishful thinking that could lead to far deeper disappointments? How can we be certain that we are programming our subconscious mind for success and not just for a devastating illusion?
That is a perfectly valid and profound question, Dr. Sinclair. It is the very point where most people falter. The very place where doubt, like a weed, chokes the roots of faith before it has a chance to grow.
So you do acknowledge it's a genuine risk?
I acknowledge that there is a genuine misunderstanding of what faith truly is. You speak of self-delusion. A delusion is clinging to a belief in spite of the evidence. But faith is the act of creating the evidence that does not yet exist. They are moving in opposite directions. Faith is not about ignoring reality. It is about focusing all the powers of the mind to change reality.
Creating the evidence. That's a fascinating way to put it, but it still feels a bit abstract to me. In your research, you spoke with hundreds of successful men. Andrew Carnegie, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford. They were all titans of industry. They had faith, yes, but they also had resources, technical genius, and a capitalist system that was built for creation.
Go on.
My question is, can you show me an example? A historical example on a grand scale where faith alone, without the backing of financial resources, without an army, without political power, managed to alter a reality that seemed impossible to change? Something beyond an individual's success in business. Something that logic and data would have given a 0% chance of succeeding.
Yes, I have a very fine example in mind. A story about a small, seemingly frail man who stood against the most powerful empire the world had ever known.
You mean...
You mean Mahatma Gandhi. Let's, for a moment, analyze the situation from your data-driven perspective. On one side, you have the British Empire. It possessed a colossal army, an unmatched navy, the wealth of nations pouring into its coffers, and an ironclad bureaucracy that controlled the entire Indian subcontinent. All tangible evidence pointed to its power being absolute.
And on the other side, Gandhi.
And on the other side, Gandhi, a man who had none of those things. No army to command, no treasury to fund soldiers, no official political office from which to issue decrees. If you were a risk analyst at the time, Dr. Sinclair, on whom would you wager?
That's not a difficult question. The empire.
Precisely. Any logical person would. But Gandhi possessed a weapon that was immeasurable by any of those metrics. He had an idea. The idea of Indian independence through non-violent resistance. And more importantly than the idea itself, he had absolute, unshakable faith in that idea's ultimate victory.
So his weapon was just a thought?
It was more than a thought. It was a state of mind, a faith so powerful that it became a tangible force. He didn't just hold this faith in his own mind. He planted it in the minds of millions of his countrymen. He didn't teach them how to fight with guns. He taught them how to believe that freedom was their birthright, to believe that their power was in their unity, not in violence. He built an army of believers, an army that couldn't be defeated by bullets, because it was forged in the mind, not on the battlefield. That, Dr. Sinclair, is the power to create evidence. He saw the shore on the other side of the river while everyone else was just looking at the raging water.
He saw the shore on the other side of the river while everyone else was just looking at the raging water? That's a very powerful image. Wait a minute, so you're not saying that he just sat there and hoped the British Empire would have a change of heart and leave?
Not at all. Hope is a different thing entirely, Dr. Sinclair. Hope is passive.
Exactly. That's the point. You're saying he was actively doing something. He was engineering a belief in his own mind and then in millions of others. Is that the right word?
You've said it yourself, engineering. That is the perfect word. You have struck the very heart of the matter. Faith is not some mystical gift or a matter of luck that is bestowed upon a chosen few, and it is not blind, passive hope. Faith is a self-induced state of mind.
Self-induced, meaning we create it ourselves?
Yes, through discipline, through practice. You see, the mind is much like a garden. If you do not consciously plant flowers and tend to them, weeds will grow of their own accord. And what are those weeds? Fear, doubt, indecision, despair. Faith is the act of consciously planting a powerful, definite thought in that garden, and then watering that thought every single day with emotion and belief until it grows so strong that there is no longer any room for the weeds to grow.
So it's a skill, not an innate talent.
Precisely, a skill. And like any other skill, it is acquired through practice. And the tool for this practice? Auto-suggestion. The act of repeatedly feeding your subconscious mind a definite purpose, a clear statement, until your subconscious accepts it as absolute truth. Once the subconscious mind accepts a thing as fact, it begins to devote all your forces to transforming that thought into its physical equivalent. Faith is the end result of this process, the product of a disciplined mind. It is the only known antidote for fear.
A skill. So it's something that can be learned, not something you either have or you don't. that changes everything.
Because we can no longer just say, well, I'm not a person of faith, and let ourselves off the hook. If it's a skill, then the responsibility to learn it is our own. And that brings me to a new challenge, an entirely modern one.
I am ready to hear it.
In your time, Mr. Hill, the greatest enemies of a person's ambition might have been their own internal fears and the discouraging words of those around them. Those still exist, but today we face a new phenomenon, a constant, ceaseless noise, an endless barrage of static.
Noise? Explain what you mean.
I mean, this overwhelming flood of information. We open our eyes in the morning and we're bombarded by our phones. Bad news from across the globe, comparing our own lives to the curated, flawless highlight reels of others on social media, work emails injecting stress into our veins before our feet even hit the floor. In this hurricane of distraction, in this marketplace of opinions and negativity, how can we possibly cultivate the skill of faith? How do we make the voice of this inner belief loud enough to be heard over the deafening roar of doubt and data?
The tools have changed, Dr. Sinclair, but the principles of the human mind have not. You speak of an external noise, but I submit to you that this external noise is merely a reflection of an internal one. An aimless mind will listen to any and every sound. But a mind that possesses a definite, burning purpose automatically filters out most of that static.
So you're saying the purpose itself acts as a kind of filter?
Precisely. Think of the mind as a magnifying glass. You can let the full light of the sun pass through it onto a piece of paper for hours, and nothing will happen. But if you hold that glass steady and focus that same light onto a single tiny point, what happens?
It catches fire.
It catches fire. Your mind is that sunlight. All the information and news you speak of are the passing clouds that scatter it. Faith is the magnifying glass, and your definite purpose is that single point of focus. Remember Gandhi. Do you imagine there was no noise in his time? The roar of the empire's propaganda calling him a madman, the voices of his own allies who sometimes doubted his path, the crushing reality of his physical circumstances screaming defeat at him every day. But his purpose, Indian independence, was so clear, so burning, so sacred to him that his mind had nowhere else to go. He held his magnifying glass steady on that single point. So the question is not how to silence the noise. The question is, how do we make our purpose so clear and so powerful that all other sounds simply fade into the background? And for that, there is a very specific formula.
A formula! Mr. Hill, that's something our modern analytical minds are desperate for. A clear method in the midst of all the theory. Please, share it with us.
With pleasure. This formula is the result of observing man who built fortunes from nothing. It is remarkably simple, but its power lies in its application. It has 5 steps. First, determine the exact amount of money you desire. Do not say, I want a lot of money. Say, I will have in my possession, on the first day of January next year, the exact sum of $50,000. Definiteness is the first step.
Absolute definiteness.
Second, determine exactly what you intend to give in return for the money you desire. There is no such reality as something for nothing. Will you give your services, your ideas, your time? This is your transaction with life. Third, establish a definite date by which you intend to possess this money. A mind without a deadline will procrastinate.
Like a contract with oneself.
Precisely. Fourth, create a definite plan for carrying out your desire and begin at once, whether you are ready or not to put this plan into action. Taking action, even a small action, proves to your mind that you are serious. And the fifth and most critical step, write out a clear, concise statement of the amount of money you intend to acquire. Name the time limit, state what you intend to give in return, and describe the plan clearly. Read this written statement aloud twice daily, once just before retiring at night and once after arising in the morning.
Just a moment. Why loud? What difference does that make?
Because when you hear the words in your own voice, you engage another one of your senses. You are not just thinking, you are hearing. It multiplies the impression upon your subconscious mind. You are, in effect, giving yourself an order.
And what is the role of emotion in all this? Is simply repeating the words enough?
An excellent question. No, it is not. When you read that statement, you must see and feel and believe yourself already in possession of the goal. You must stir the emotion of gratitude, of excitement, of joy, as if it has already happened. Remember what I said at the beginning. Faith is the head chemist of the mind. Thought is one element, emotion is the other. It is the blending of the two that creates the powerful mixture that the subconscious mind receives and acts upon.
So now I understand. All the pieces just clicked into place. Faith. It isn't a blind leap into the dark. It's the act of building a bridge, one plank at a time, across a chasm, all while knowing the other side is there, even when you can't see it yet. This formula, these are the materials to build that bridge. This isn't magic, it's mind engineering.
Precisely, Dr. Sinclair. Mind engineering.